Tom, if you commit a violent crime based on the status of your victim, if you see an Orthodox Jew and beat them up because they're a Jew, if you see someone who you believe to be a homosexual and you assault them because they're a homosexual, ditto, as we saw in our report, a Latino victim, should that carry a different punishment?
Well, I don't think there should be a category known as hate crimes. I think that's a form of thought control. It's a form of saying the way you think, if you think in a way that's not politically correct or politically popular, we're going to give you extra punishment. Murder is a crime because it's evil to kill a human being. And it's just as evil no matter what the race of the person you kill and no matter what the motive. Now, there are a lot of extenuating circumstances and so forth that we lawyers can talk about. But they're taken care of by other parts of the criminal law, and were taken care of well before you had hate crime statutes. So having said that, I mean, to the extent that you've got people being attacked in this country for being Latino, for being Hispanic, it goes back to the kinds of factors that I was talking about earlier. If you've got an attitude in this country that we have a right to keep this country the way it was in the 1950s when Father Knows Best was on TV, and to keep the nation white and English speaking, there is no such right. There is no such right to keep your country the way you like it. There's no way to keep your neighborhood the way you like it. Other people have a right to live in society. They may look differently and they may speak differently. Legally, they should all be equal before the law. I think the same is true in hate crimes.
Brent, what do you think? Is it a valid approach to crime and punishment to look into whether someone was attacked because of who they are?
I absolutely think it is, and it's because when you think about it, racial crime, racial hatred can spread if it's allowed to get out of control, and it could become much more dangerous if suddenly people were being attacked on a regular basis just solely because of their race or ethnicity or sexual orientation. So the society has a legitimate interest in trying to have an extra effort to try to deter those types of crime, because you do not want it to spread and to grow.
But Tom points out that there already are laws against assault, battery, murder on the books, and those crimes are punished.
But given our history in this country, where we've had situations in the past where there was pretty regular hate crimes taking place, lynchings and all these types of things. When LULAC started, there were Texans that would brag that they killed 25 people, not counting Mexicans, and so it was just easy to kill somebody of a different ethnicity and get away with it. You don't want to go back to that situation, and so I think to have an additional deterrent is important. And when you look at what's happening in this country right now, and the fact that there are people that's trying to gin up what I would call a racial or an ethnic war in America, and get all kinds of emails which purport to try to gin up folks to do this, using dehumanizing language about other ethnicities, trying to say that, because somebody came in perhaps without papers, that justifies taking a violent action against them, including shooting and killing. And you see this type of stuff, and it's almost like they're daring each other to take the next step, and then somebody does take that step and kill somebody because of their ethnicity.
Tom, look, before I go to Diana, let me get a quick response from you on just that point about America's tortured history in some of these aspects. People throughout our history have been killed because of what they are, targeted because of
racism, and because of the remnants of it. You could call tribalism. Everybody's got their own tribe, their own group, and you go to the political system for pressure group favors. If you enforce the laws, if you look back at the history of Jim Crow and lynchings and so forth, if you enforced the laws, you would have put a stop to that. But what made it such a horrible era in American history is that the racism was so pervasive that, as Brent says, that people were allowed to get away with it. So that's the problem, is not enforcing the laws. You don't need an extra crime for a hate crime. All murder is hate of some kind or another. All first-degree murder represents hate. And there's no legal justification for making that as something extra. That's part of murder.
Diana?
Well, I would just say generally our criminal law system is based on intent. You have higher penalties if it's first degree, meaning it's premeditated. If it's manslaughter, it's lower. So I think when we focus on hate crimes and you think of the intent and the hatred to kill based on someone's ethnicity or sexual orientation, it makes sense that given the criminal law system that you would have an extra penalty. I also agree with what Brent stated as well, is that we have to prevent this from happening. And we have to deter it from happening and send a message that it is not okay to do this.
And the current punishments provided for in law are not sufficient deterrent to
No.
assault or murder?
No, I think having that extra penalty of the hate crime is something that is, increased, it has increased deterrent value. It's also very important to send a message to the community as well, a community that is grieving because one of their members was brutally murdered.
So society's saying, we understand you're under attack. Here, we're taking extra steps. Is it tough to prove?
It's very tough to prove. It's very tough to prove. And oftentimes it's an added burden on the prosecutor to get some type of testimony, to get evidence, to have witnesses come forward as well. So it is something that has a heightened measure. It's something also that a lot of groups have asked the Department of Justice to be involved in because locally some of the police forces may not look into the hate crime. And so there's occasions where civil rights organizations have asked the Department of Justice to come in, particularly in the Lucero incident in Patchogue. The Department of Justice came in as well to investigate that.